We've made it.
We did it.
Well, why are you not? There we go. You reconnected. You reconnected. There we go. Now it works.
I did?
Yeah.
No.
When you first popped in, like before your little box popped into the manage window, but you hadn't had a webcam or anything authenticated to it yet. So I set the options right away, and then when it set your webcam, it reset the options back to default. So you were no longer muted in the scenes, and you were all radio rage. Radio.
I know they say, I got a face for radio.
Oof. So, this is the first time we're going to review a game. Oh, no, it's not. I was going to say, this is the first time we're going to review a game without having finished it. But we just reviewed Elden Ring.
True.
So it's not really the first anymore. But it is the first game on stream that I haven't finished because it wouldn't let me.
Although technically Dead Space PC as well.
Yes. But we actually went and finished it. Thankfully, Dead Space PC did it in the first room and not the door to the very last room. Not even the last level, the last room. All I had to do was go through that door and blow up some engines. That was fucking it.
That would have been the end of the game. That would have been it.
So I did finish it. I just don't get to see the ending. And I still haven't watched it. I actually have it for PS4 as well, which works on PS5. So maybe I'll play it again. Because I actually did rather enjoy the game. I did. It was quite a bit of fun. It was a lovely, lovely mix of FPS and RTS that I've never seen anybody try to do before.
Yeah, and like that comes with its own share of problems. But the way that they dealt with them was generally pretty good. Yeah. We'll
definitely talk more about it as we get to mechanics and stuff. But starting at world building, it was an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty well-built RPG. I feel like I know a lot about the world. I remember a lot of the characters. I learned a lot about the history and the lore, and it was interesting. And I think you could probably play this game for the story and the lore and the world. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think the world was well put together. It made sense. The way things were set up, obviously with any RPG, it has to have its own like internal logic. But I think that it actually stuck to its own internal logic pretty well, and thought it was well done.
I'm at it good on world building. I was pretty surprised. I liked it a lot. It was better than I expected. I was expecting just a strategy game.
Turns out, full-on RPG.
Yeah. It reminded me of Shining Force. In the world of strategy games. Like a World War II Shining Force. And I adore Shining Force, so anything that reminds me of Shining Force is going to be pretty good in my mind. I liked that game. Such a well-done game. I used Shining Force to introduce Pookie to strategy RPGs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she finished that one too.
It's a good game.
It is a good game. Not impossible, but still makes you think about your moves. The world building is enough to carry the game. Thankfully, it does not need to. The world has an interesting history that you will explore, and also a relevant current story to go with it. Then, characters. Hey, Neriel, welcome. I liked the characters. Yeah, I thought they were really well written. They were human. They had flaws and different reasons for being in the war, and they didn't always get along, and it dealt with a lot of societal issues of racism and classism, and yeah.
Huh?
I have no idea.
I have no idea what she's... What?
Rage's emote?
That's one of the ones that I made.
I'm getting a lot of background noise from you, by the way, Rage.
Yeah, the window's open.
But
I'll go shut it.
Like a constant buzz. Almost like not enough cut off.
I know what it is. It's too much cable in between my mic and my interface.
I enjoyed the complexity of the world. They went with the World War aesthetic, with going, look, steampunk / Magitech Nazis. Yep. Yep, I agree. Zelo Magitech is a favorite genre. Final Fantasy VI. After you've played that, you can't not love Magitech. I can't sub because then we actually lose money.
It's true. Because Twitch takes a cut.
Yep, they take half of it. You get half back, but it's good for the channel if you're trying to build a channel.
Yep. And that may end up being a thing in the future again. Yep. Now that I'm, pulled my head out of my ass. But for now,
happens. Heads get up asses. It happens.
Just kind of a thing.
At least it's nice and dark and warm up there.
True.
But I'm at a good on characters. I actually really enjoyed all of the characters. I didn't actually dislike any of the characters, and I thought they used them really well to build societical relevance.
Yeah, the writing for the characters I found a little ham-fisted from the bits that I watched.
That was kind of their style, though.
I mean, like at the same time, the cast is large enough that you need to make them like immediately, obviously recognizable.
Yeah.
So the part of me that really enjoys good writing wants to deduct points for that, but I think they kind of had to do it.
Yeah.
So
I think what they did is good writing for the situation, for the game, for the look and feel of the game, even for the art style. There's a certain kind of silly aesthetic to the art style, and it's very anime. He learned to ride the tank in high school.
Yeah.
I think I'm at a good though. If you argued enough, I might come down to an okay, but I'm definitely at a good.
Yeah, it would be a high okay. I don't know if it didn't stand out to me, but maybe it's because I consume a lot of that kind of media.
Could be.
Like that might be the whole thing.
There's so many areas they could have just gone bland and just like had characters that looked different and you just go and fight with them. But they really, really pushed, the background of all the stories and the racist tendencies of certain characters, and they even used, aspects to help improve characters over time. Trying to avoid too many spoilers here, but yeah, there was a lot of growth even, and they weren't the same people at the end when they started.
Yeah. Like my major criticism is the ham-fistedness of a lot of the delivery, not of the like overarching character writing. But like we said, I think it's kind of necessary in their in their game because you do have such a large cast.
I think your complaints
would, good.
Yeah, I think your complaints would go more under storyline, which is kind of storyline / writing. I think the writing more goes under the storyline.
Well, this is the whole writing category.
That's
character
true.
Writing versus storyline writing.
That's true.
Because those are two separate things.
That is true. I guess, yeah, character limitations of the media too.
Kind of yes and no. Like they could have gone with a smaller cast of more deeply explored characters.
Yeah, there's not a lot of limitations on the media for them. It would have been PS3 era, you're not dealing with too many size limitations or anything by that point. Maybe like hardware rendering limitations, but the writing doesn't really play any role in that. They can have as many characters as they want. It's more about how many are on screen at one point for that. So there's definitely ways around all of it. I think the media played fairly low impact on that one. It was just the look and feel they were going for, I think. It's following something that Yakuza does. And it's something that Yakuza does very, 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 very well. And that is super serious, lighthearted laughing. Super serious, lighthearted laughing. And you need to weed in those lighthearted, silly, laugh, lighten it up moments in the game in order to kind of take the edge off of the really serious, downer stuff that's also happening in the story.
Mm-hmm. And they did handle that very well with the characters. And again, I think it's just a cast size thing, because like in Yakuza, the cast size is much more restricted, and because of that, you get the opportunity to explore those characters more deeply. You don't necessarily need to, sort of put it all up front.
Yeah. Well, this one also isn't about any one character. Like, the beginning is very much about Welkin, the main character, and it builds him a lot. But once the game gets going, it becomes very much about the group and the war. And then you just have little moments for the individuals to sort of reveal themselves, to keep that pace going. And that actually was done very, very, very well, to be able to reveal little bits about all the characters as they go without ruining the pace of the strategy game.
And I think that initial focus is essential for the world building, because it gives you sort of a fixed point to grab onto.
Yep. And
really get into the world, rather than just being, sort of, I don't know who any of these people are. Why do I care?
Yeah. Well, that's very much how our brains work for learning too, is an interesting note. You once you've established a piece of knowledge that you can remember, it's much easier to attach new knowledge to it and call that knowledge up, rather than learning something as a whole. So yeah, if they were to have thrown everything at you at the same time and just expect you to learn it, it would have been overwhelming and just unfun, unwelcoming. People would bounce off of it. But because they build that initial knowledge and then just start attaching to it, you can easily make that kind of thought path to each element. And yeah, really, really well done writing. They've considered a lot.
Yeah, the only criticism I have is that most of the cast is fairly shallow, but I don't kind of fine for the kind of game it is.
Yeah, I don't consider all of the throwaway characters even,
because there are a lot of them.
Yeah, they're literally just there because you need to field an army. But all of the main characters that are like when you put these in the battle, you gain extra AP, because they're like, you should really have these in every battle. These are the characters of your story. The rest are just support troops. Those are the ones that I consider when I'm talking about the character writing. They're the ones in all the cutscenes. They're the ones in all the back and forths. The other ones only talk when you come in and talk to them. But even they have a little bit of backstory, and there's some work done to them.
They've got a bit, but it's like even the more main characters, like they went for the comic book punchy, wear your heart on your sleeve, not a whole lot of depth thing. And that's a stylistic choice, and it works really well for the game.
Rosie has a lot of depth.
Yes, true.
Some of the side stories in DLC flesh out those characters too. Yeah, you got to remember there was a lot of side story stuff that I didn't do, which is all the little stories about the characters. Like, I did one around the end. I never did Goes to the Beach. The only one I ever did was vegetables. That's like, honestly, the vegetables meme is now, I like that even more than nanomachines. For me, it's that good. It really is. You had to be there. I mean, I don't think you saw it all.
Meme till gear forever, man.
I mean, meme till gear is good, but Largo, oh, vegetables! Every time he moves, it fucking triggers after you do that. So every turn he took, he's like, oh, vegetables! It's like, yes. You give them the vegetables. They're characters you can get invested in. I think that's the final deciding statement.
Yeah, and I would say that is very much accurate to the game.
Yeah. Storyline.
This I don't know a whole bunch about because I was popping in and out. I only caught bits and pieces.
I'm kind of leaning towards good. It had some twists and turns I didn't expect. It didn't do a lot of ridiculous things. It has lots of meaning and relevance to modern society, and I don't want to give away the the story with all the really cool twists, but yeah, there's a lot of allegory to modern day, and they thought about their meanings, their reasons, their goals. You know, nothing doesn't make sense, and a lot of it is actually some pretty well-written twists. Yeah, the more I talk about it, it's a good story. Yeah.
It certainly sounds like it.
The final boss broke so hard we couldn't finish the game, actually. Welcome, Dap. Turns out, if you play it on PC and you don't run the exact right hardware, there's an invisible wall in the last area that you can't run through. Yeah, it was really bad.
Mission 5 was rough.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get to mechanics, for sure. I have things to say. I really wanted to see 2. I was super disappointed. Hush, stomach, you will get food later. The story is thought out with surprises and twists, and rather than twists, contains allegory and allegory to modern day issues and events and addresses them well. Game can be played for the story. Thanks, Zelo. The game was a lot better than I expected. Pissed me off to no end at times, but it was still a lot better than I expected. Performance. Well,
So
I guess it runs well
when it runs.
If it runs. Well, it runs. It just soft locks, and it doesn't stop running. Like, you can still keep running around in that area and shooting all the things that spawn, and it'll keep working, and it won't drop frames, and it'll run fine. You just can't proceed. I don't know if that's performance. That's definitely a bug, though.
Definitely a big black mark on bugs. Yeah, performance, I guess, it's hard to tell with these older games because we just throw so much hardware at them. But seemed fine.
Yeah. If you have the specs, it should run. However, strongly recommend just playing this on console. Avoid the PC port. See bugs. Animation.
So then, do we want to give it an okay for performance then? Because it was just like fine. And it had a 60 FPS lock, didn't it?
No, it didn't. That was the problem.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'll come up in bugs too.
Yep. Also, the logic thread is tied to the render thread in it. So when I hard locked the FPS and tried to play it, it just slowed the game down. Yeah. I actually did a 30 FPS lock.
They're the same thread.
I actually did a 30 FPS lock on one and tried to play it. My characters was like, And I was like, oh, this isn't playable. No. So I put it at 60 FPS, and it was way slower than what I was used to, and it threw off the whole feel of the game. Also, when I did that, I was like, oh, this is why the aiming was so fucking touchy when I was trying to use a controller. It was just, like, oh, fuck, I can't control this. Because it was running so fucking fast, and they just didn't limit anything because they needed to just let it run as fast as it could, because what it was written on had to run it that way. And they didn't build a box around it to control it. They just let it run in the wild. It was bad. But animation. I think performance is good. I think it'll run on most potatoes. Just don't try it, because if your potato is too good, you won't be able to finish it.
Animation-wise, though, like... So this is where we get sort of into a stylistic versus effort discussion. Because there was a lot of really nice animations, but then those are the only ones you get. Like a lot of the animations were very much like, okay, they just applied this same animation to a different vector.
Yeah, which is what I would honestly expect from this type of game. Because you're not... Yeah, go ahead.
It's like it could entirely just be stylistic. Like that could totally be a thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably is stylistic, and it's also just kind of what's expected from this genre.
Yeah, it's
everyone I've ever seen is built that way, and like even XCOM is built that way. You know, you fire your gun, you fire your gun. Does the same animation, doesn't matter what you're firing at. It looks fine. It's really not there to be anything more than a conveyance of information to the player playing the top view strategy game. A lot of the time you're looking at the units as little chips, just because you need to see where the view is.
Yeah, and I would say it's definitely fine. It's definitely adequate.
Yep. I would give it an okay.
I don't know that I would go above an okay for it, even though, like, when we touch on style, I'm going to be fairly glowing.
Yeah. I mean, gave some variety to the animations, but don't recall. I mean, it doesn't need to. Honestly, the animations don't need more than an okay in this game. Nobody's going to be playing this game to see beautiful animations. You know, beautiful animations aren't going to give you much more immersion into the game. It's really not going to add much, and it's going to be a lot more cost. So if you're going to clip money, this is where to do it in this game, and it was the right call. It didn't ruin the game at all. Animations are fine for what they are. They convey information well to the user, to the player. And are immediately understandable for what they are. No, you don't need to look at like, what is he doing? It's, oh, he's doing this. Oh, he's doing that. And it's pretty clear all the time. Style. There you go. Glow
It's
away.
really neat. It's really neat. I like it a lot. The callbacks to different manga styles and, like, you know, as we've said several times now, the comic book styling is really cool. Like the visual effects that they implemented is like so thematically consistent and so well done that it gave the game just a ton of character, just a ton of character. And it's applied consistently throughout the game. Sure, you know, it comes from the era where a lot of games were just brown. Like you get a video game, it's mostly brown. It's just how it was.
Like Metal Gear Solid brown. I mean green.
Yep.
I mean 3.
Like you have very monochromatic palette. But again, that also made sense within the world of the game that you were in. It was a lot of desert and mountain sort of stuff.
Yep.
And that's fine. It's fine. The terrain, a little difficult to tell between different maps sometimes if you're just looking into a corner where all your troops spawn or something. Meh. But overall, really loved it. I thought it was really well done. Obviously, a lot of care and attention given to the visual style of the game, and I think they did really well.
Yep. I love the art style, like you were saying, to mimic all the anime styles. It's written like an anime. You know, we're going back to the writing. We gave it goods. It's because the writing is so in line with the style. Nothing feels out of place. It feels right. If you've watched a lot of animes that are similar to this, you'll be right at home playing it. No worries there. But I love the design of the Lancers. I really do. Like the, you know, mounting the lance in the back and then a rocket-powered piece to pierce armor. Just the whole look and feel of it. I loved the design of the tanks in the game, the Valkyria, and yeah, everything. It all looked like it fit, and the pieces that didn't look like they fit looked properly out of place.
Yeah, like they were intentionally out of place, not just somebody fucked this up.
Yep. Yep. And that is what they went for. They were going for, this ain't from around here. Reminds you of 13. Not Final Fantasy 13, the game 13.
I never played 13.
I didn't play it either. It didn't look like my kind of game, but it did look at it, and I do see the style similarities in the cell texturing and everything. Yeah. This is almost a cell shaded game, but
almost
without shading.
Not really.
It's like a cell textured game.
it's just textured in a very flat style.
Yes. We love the style. It fits the aesthetic of the writing very well. All the pieces look in place, except for the ones that intentionally do not. They also look great. Not that good. You have David Duchovny doing voiceover, but he did it all in one take, so it's not good. How could you ever tell if he did it all in one take? He only has one tone.
That's why he only had to do one take?
Well, we don't know if he did it all in one take. They could have just come out and said, oh yeah, he did it all in one take. Meanwhile, it's like 30 different recordings that were all fucking identical. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Musical score.
From what I experienced, I would say it's fine.
Okay. Yep.
Totally adequate.
Totally acceptable game music. Probably not your daily listening, but it won't offend you. Shouldn't offend you. People get offended by stupid things sometimes. The voice acting was good. I liked the voice acting. Characters had personality.
Very, very anime. Not
terribly memorable, though. I fully agree, and that's why it's not a good. It's just an okay. It's fine. You don't want game music to always be super memorable. Sometimes you just want the game music to fill a void while the players focus on story and characters and other stuff.
And it totally served that purpose.
Did just fine.
Yeah, the voice acting that I was around for was very anime. I don't say that as a bad thing. It's just, it
just was.
Again, consistent with the style that they were going for. From what I saw, I don't really have any complaints. Everything seemed pretty good.
Appropriate to their model, I'm going to add, because that was one thing that I definitely noticed. Everybody sounded like that voice would definitely be coming out of that person.
Agree.
And I hate it when that happens. When somebody walks up and you're just like, whoa, that's not the voice for them. The
one of those, this character's model clearly changed after the voiceover work was done.
Yeah, the Hobbit walks up and sounds like fucking Peter Steele. Unless it's supposed to be. I mean, if they're going to explain it with a story, but if it's just for the whole time, the character just sounds like, wow, that's not right, and then no. Then no. You know, if it's like a chicken that was turned into a chicken and it kept its human voice because of magic, then, you know, whatever, that makes sense. It doesn't have to fit its model at that point. When it's just bad, it's bad. Sound effects.
Were totally sufficient. They were
totally
acceptable.
Fine for relaying information to the player. Not memorable. Yeah. I mean, I remember them. I remember the sound of the scout gun really well. Pop, 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 pop.
Pap, pap, pap.
Pop, 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 pop.
Okay. Shooting is happening.
Yep. That's what they're trying to tell you. Someone is firing a gun, and they didn't want to blow out your eardrums because you're playing a strategy game and there's going to be a lot of it. You're not playing Battlefield ASMR. They're not OP, they're just really good at the end of the game. Which, you know, scouts are good in real life. Scouts are a good thing. They're very strong. Information wins you fights. True. However, in this game, the scouts just murder everyone.
Directly.
Early on in the game, the machine gunner people wreck them pretty hard. But as soon as they get a few upgrades to their gun into the point where they've got the like second or third level damage gun and they can start killing people by themselves just out and about, that's when they start this just over. They've got the range and they've got the movement. Use them. Enemy behavior.
So do we want to talk about some of the nonsense in enemy behavior, or do we want to talk about some of the nonsense in mechanics?
Mechanics is where it belongs.
Okay.
It's failed implementation of mechanics, not the enemy's behavior itself. Having played it a lot, trust me, that's what it was.
There are some that break their own rules, though, and like that could be considered enemy behavior.
Did they break their own rules?
The tank in Mission 5 springs to mind.
But that's a special mechanic, though.
Yeah.
It's not actually a unit. It's not actually interactable like a unit. It's a special mechanic moving around the field.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about it in mechanics.
Yeah.
I would say that then the enemy behavior is sufficient.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not standout. They're not using super amazing military tactics or anything on you, but it does the job. The AI played the way a player would, it would wreck you. Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
Perfectly acceptable for the game. It makes it playable and enjoyable. At times frustrating, but probably not the fault of the enemy behavior. Fingers are failing the Fing check. Had to be gimped or you'd get dead. Yep. Although sometimes I wish they would have gone for the kill shot earlier. Like there was that one time where they had like 10 moves and they made 9 moves, and then on the 10th move they made the kill shot, and I was just like, oh, am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make it? No, I just had to sit there and watch them make all their moves before I finally died and started over. I guess I didn't make it to the final boss. I just was about to blow up the engine in the big tank thing. At the very, very end. I had taken out all the guns and blown open the wall and just had to do the engines, but no luck from there. It just stopped.
Game said no.
Accessibility.
There kind of wasn't
There
any.
aren't any, yeah. You can invert the sticks and adjust the volume. If you cannot play the game this way, too bad. It also has no color blind options with a very bland palette.
Yeah, and that's actually a big deal for like anybody who's color deficient would really struggle to play that game.
So what we have to do is request it with Core. See how he does. My favorite moment of CoreTube, I think, was when I watched him try to play Metal Gear Solid 3 on stream, and there was literally an enemy standing in the middle of the screen shooting him that he couldn't see. Just standing there going, where is it? Where am I getting shot from? And we're like, it's right in front of you! That was literally all stream. Green. That was that stream.
It's just green.
Okay, mechanics. Now I'm going to give it an okay.
Agree. Because like the base mechanics of the game are actually pretty solid.
Yeah, I really, really liked it. If it wasn't for the bullshit, broken stuff, which I'm also going to put under bugs, it's going to be both of them. Because some of it is bug, and some of it I think they meant to be that way,
but
they shouldn't have. Yeah. So let's start with the good. I love the core mechanics. I love the core loop. I love the average turn. I like the definition of the classes. I like the way the weapons work for the classes. Everything about the general balance other than the scouts, but honestly the scouts being OP makes the game playable. So I'm not super against it either.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, more effort could have been put into other systems to make it so that the scouts weren't as necessary.
I agree. The others are better for, defending a base and stuff like that. They're not completely useless. There is reason to have other ones, but when you're pushing forward and exploring, it's always scout. And if you're good enough with scout, then you can clear while you're doing it, so you can always be pushing forward, so it's just always scout.
Yeah. Which is kind of a shame.
Not against it. The capture bases with scout blitzkrieg was nice. I agree. I don't think the scorecard at the end was entirely necessary. I agree.
I mean, you can say the same thing about StarCraft, but like people love chasing score in StarCraft.
Yeah, it is unnecessary still, but it's there. Yeah, not every strategy game needs it. It's something that you can push for. Maybe adds a bit of replayability. If you absolutely adore the game, maybe somebody was like, I want to get an A in every level. And, there's some replayability there. There's a little bit. There's something for it. But they didn't make it necessary. It's not offensive. It's not required. You can ignore it and still play the game and have fun like I did, even though I did get an A. Fuck you, game. Got an A on my first play. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
The core mechanics, I think, were really well done. Just when they step outside of that core mechanical loop is when the problems start to come in, and the problems are significant.
Yeah, like I loved the shooting mechanic. I loved the aiming. I loved how it handled. I think it handles weapons better than some FPS. Fuck those games. And it doesn't handle them well, but there's some really bad FPS out there.
Yeah. As somebody who has played more traditional strategy games, typically RTS, the shooting mechanic to me, like, it's neat that it's there. I kind of wish you could just like pick a target and be done with it. But that's down to preference rather than like mechanical correctness and in the way that it was applied. I think the application is actually quite good, but I would personally prefer just like let me pick a target from a list or something.
From somebody that does more RTS, I can understand that viewpoint. Having come from a world of playing a lot of turn-based strategy games where I'm selecting an attack and a target and it's got that slow pace, I really liked the extra little bit of interactivity it added where I got to aim. It was a little bit more immersion where I got a better feel of what it's like on that battlefield and what the viewpoint was really like from my person's perspective on the field. And yeah, I got a better feel for the battlefield for it. I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, there is a scrollable list. Interesting. Okay. My complaint is moot. Good game.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was snapping around to targets before I made my shot. It was just R1, R1, R1 to choose the target, and then I just aimed up a little bit to hit the head.
Neat.
Yeah. Yeah. So once you have the target, then you just like can kind of aim around on the target to choose what weak point you want to try to hit or what's visible and what's not. And it made line of sight important and where your weak point is facing important. And it actually adds a lot of mechanical depth to the game, really.
I mean, you could have all of that without the manual aiming. It'd be a little trickier. And it'd be a little more RNG. But honestly, I have no complaints with it now, knowing that you can just kind of snap through targets. Totally fine.
Yeah. I used the snapping a lot to be like, what's available? What are my options here? Especially on my sniper, to see what was in range and what was visible to him and stuff. But the sight lines that they used while you're moving around on the field, super effective. I actually really liked those two.
Yeah,
really well done. Really well done. And color-coded to relay information. Top tier. Great mechanics. So let's shit on the game now.
Yeah. Oh, man. Man, when this game steps out of its core loop, it has problems.
Yep. I'm sure a lot of people quit the game at that stage 5 fight. It's ass. It's terrible. It's bullshit. If you take the whole thing out of the fight or out of the game and make that whole thing a cutscene, the game is a better game. Period. And it's got nothing to do with the difficulty of it, and everything to do with the fact that the difficulty comes from it not working well.
Well, that and it breaks the rules of how things interact. And this is the same thing that I complained about in so many games. Most notably recently Sekiro and the final Genichiro fight. They changed the rules on the fight. What I know no longer applies. Bullshit.
Yeah, the Genichiro one kind of skirts the edge of the rules. It kind of still is. It's just a surprise at first. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. But, status effects still build on you through blocks, and it's really just a damage status.
Yeah, except that there's no, ramp up of it. It just happens.
Yeah, I know. I know. But that is how it was mechanically implemented, and that's why it worked through their rules. And I agree it's a bit of bullshit, but it was a bend, not a break in that one.
Yes. It was more of a bend. I'm still upset at it because it broke the rules of the Genichiro fight, because I love the other Genichiro fights. But the way that they handled it in this game was not so much, bending or breaking rules, as there's an entire different rule book for fighting this mechanic on this map. And this is the only time you're going to see it, and you got to figure out what it is.
And that isn't even the most offensive part of it all to me. The most offensive part of it all to me is they clearly spent a ton of time polishing that main game loop. All of those mechanics work fantastically. And then as soon as you try to use a mechanic where it's only in this fight, shit falls apart. Okay? It don't work. There's so many times where I'm doing things, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's just like, why is it not working? This is what they told me to do. It did that so many times to me that when I hit the actual bug at the end of the game, I spent an hour running around trying to figure out what I was actually supposed to do, because I thought they just weren't being clear with me. It was really, really poorly relayed. Really poorly relayed. Just not how you do things. That tank fight needed about 2 or 3 weeks at least more playtesting.
Yeah, and they needed to go back and iterate on it because it just wasn't done.
Yep,
wasn't done cooking.
It was. So we're gonna small mechanic spoiler here. Not really a spoiler for the game. All it's gonna do is save you headache. They always tout this tank as fire move, but no, it will fire after it moves too if it has a shot. And they're not going to tell you where it's going to end up. So make sure you save, because you have no idea where the shot's coming from. There's no way to know where the shot is going to come from the next turn, or the end of this turn. Can't know it. So save before you move your final units, and then let it play. And if it kills you, reload and don't go there. And that is the way to beat that fight. That is the only mechanically logical way to work your way through the fight, and that is what brings this whole thing down to an okay. Oh, yeah. We should talk about that too. That was ass. So later on, they actually let you jump up onto the tank to deal with pieces. And if you're standing on the tank when the tank moves, you will just be left where you're standing and the tank will leave you behind. And then shoot you because you're standing in the middle of a field with no cover.
Physics.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what we were talking about with needed flushing out. That doesn't make any sense. You know, you leave yourself on top of a tank. You do not expect yourself to be in the middle of the field when you come back to yourself. That's not logic. That's not physics. When you're on top of something, you move with it. And they didn't tell us anything about that. All it does is just, oh, surprise, and there's many little janks like that. So save often. Save often. And that's what's pulling it down to an okay. If it wasn't for those janks where they overlooked and didn't think about and didn't apply proper attention, this would be a good in mechanics. I love the game otherwise.
It really does do a lot right. It really does.
And the game are fantastic. That was a Fing fail.
Bye.
Are fantastic, period. The issues are with one-off boss mechanics that often let the game down. See the video for details. Save often. Save scum. Save scumming's not bad. Stating it now. If a game lets you save scum, it's designed to be save scummed. That's how they intended you to play it. It's not cheating. If they didn't want you to do it, they wouldn't let you save that often. I think about that. When I'm putting a save in, like how often do I want them to save? Where do I want them to save? What sort of risk do I want them to have to wager when they go into areas? These are thought about. I guarantee you, every game designer worth half of his salt thinks about this before they put the saves in. So if you can save scum, some guy went, this is bullshit, in the design process. Bugs are bad.
Bugs are bad. And so is the rating.
Do not play PC version. Just leaving it that, yeah. Do not play PC version. Don't risk it.
Probably add in the note of you won't be able to finish the game.
There is a potential soft lock at the very end of the game that you cannot know until you get there and try. Play on a console. Yeah. Please stop making shit PC ports. You know what? It's really fucking complicated. Really fucking complicated to sever your render and your logic threads once they're tied. You're remaking the game. You know what you can do? You can wrap it in something that limits its frame rate.
And just not have them that closely tied to begin with.
If you're cheating on the console launch and you're not expecting it and all of a sudden, just wrap it in something. Just let it run in its own little VM that's going to give it the guaranteed frames that it needs. It's doable. It's not difficult. And
or even just like a timeout. A timeout at the end of the thread or at the end of main to make it take exactly 16.66 milliseconds to run through main.
Yeah. There's so many ways that you could have, You know, I'm going with the rapid method because you don't even need to touch the code. You just got to put it in something. Just put it in a fucking box for me and let the box do the work. That's all you got to do. Fuckers. Pissed off. Because it took me like a minute to come up with that solution. I hit Egg and I was like, hey Egg, am I out to lunch here or would this work? He's like, yeah, it'd work. There you fucking go. Why didn't you do it? Bastards. Sold me a game without any work. And say, hey, I can get more money this way. Don't buy this game. Buy it on console. I almost tell you not to buy it at all. Yeah, it's probably the publisher. Who was the publisher?
I don't know. Probably Bamco.
Sega.
Yeah, there you go. It was the publisher. Guarantee it.
However, Sega does make good games. I admit.
Sometimes.
I mean, when they have shortfalls, it's usually not mechanical.
Usually.
I did say usually. RNG... There isn't really any slight bit of bullet spread.
Yeah, a little bit of RNG on the shots, which is somewhat annoying, given that they are actually manually aimed. But the overall implementation is fine because the enemy movements are more or less deterministic.
Yeah, and as you get better guns, they really do isolate more and more and more towards the center. They're actually replicating just firing a shitty gun. If you aim it well, it might be a little off here and there. Because they were militia with fucking scrap guns they had dug up at the beginning. But I'm going to give it a good on that. I'm totally unoffended by the RNG. They didn't do anything stupid or shitty with it. There's no, like, 80% chance to hit once you've aimed at their head. It's just, you fire, and if the bullet hit the head, then the bullet hit the head. Makes way more sense. Piranha Byte games drive me fucking nuts. I hate that about them. What about the pacifist trade? Oh, I guess there is RNG. Well, there is slight RNG, some RNG to the trait triggers, more dependent on the trigger conditions being met. So there were certain things that had to be happening for most of them to trigger, to even have a chance to trigger. And then it's just a chance, and we're all pretty used to chance triggers like that. That's a pretty common mechanic. I'm so unoffended by it, I had forgotten about it.
Especially in RPG or strategy games, like things like that are generally accepted, and I would say it's within expected variation for a game like this.
Yeah, I think it actually adds more than takes away as well. Yeah, I like it. I mean, the trait triggers. Having the traits, being able to trigger. Added some depth to the characters. Makes them different. Well, I'm at a toss-up on control, and I kind of lean towards good because I think all of my control issues were based on its frames running faster than the game could handle.
Which is not... Like, it is also just part of the game, though. Like...
But I also had the mouse as an option on the PC version, which made it
I bet it was
lovely.
Garbage.
No, it was
but
nice.
The problems with your targeting, for instance, were still because of the game developers. Like they don't get let off the hook for that. If everything had been locked to 60 FPS, it still would have felt weird compared to the full polling rate that it would have had other than or without that 60 FPS lock and just taking your raw input. Like it seems to me that it would suffer from a lot of the same problems that people have with VSync, where VSync can actually lock the render and logic. If the render and logic threads are tied together in lockstep, it'll actually lock it so that your input can be dropped or delayed based on how quickly the game is rendering.
That's fair.
But I would say okay.
Yeah, I'm at an okay. Once I stopped trying to use the controller and used the mouse, it was so much easier. You just go over to them and click them. There was no overshooting. There was no fuddling. It did what I wanted it to do at that point. The controller in the overframes was not. It was making me want to tear my hair out, and I was leaning towards a bad control at that point. But on a console, I bet you it would be far more manageable.
Yeah, maybe not excellent.
No,
but fine.
Yeah, well, we can go okay. The control won't stop you from enjoying the game. Hopefully, on PC at high frames, controller has serious issues. Recommend using your mouse to aim since you are on a PC.
And that's just how RNG works, Val. Sometimes it happens. The odds are low, but it can happen.
Yep. 90. We've talked about it often. 93% is still worse than 1 in 20 to fail. One in 20 is 5%. That's 7%. So that's basically, that's almost a 1 or 2 roll on a D20 to fail. I tried locking the frames. I tried changing the refresh rates. I did lots of things. I spent like 2 hours futzing with it, Zelo. And then I was just like, it's not working. Yeah. Sad. The writing's good. Writing video good. We really liked that point. The audio's totally fine.
The gameplay, not so much.
An okay to a bad.
I mean, it is mostly okay. It could be an okay.
But
it's a low okay.
Yeah, it's a low okay, and because accessibility is kind of a lesser one than the rest of them, kind of, no, not really. That's fine.
If you can play it and you get lucky that it works properly on your system, mechanically, it's fun.
Yeah. I guess the things that are bringing it down are really, are bugs going to stop it from working on your system, and are you able to play the game? So if the bugs don't stop you from playing it and you're able to play it, you'll probably have a good time. That's where we're at with it. An interesting review. Kind of sad. And you know what? This would be a great game for a remake. You want to remake a game? You want to remake a game? Remake Valkyria Chronicles, the first one. It is a totally prime game for a remake. There's so much good there with so much potential that just had a few issues that threw it off, and taking all of that good and just rebuilding it and fixing the little bit of bad means not a lot of extra design work. It's mostly good. It's mostly there. Just redo it and don't fuck it up. The PS4 version put a lot of polish and QOL introductions. It's a shame they didn't port that one. I actually own that one. You should have just told me to play that one. It comes with all the DLC included. There you go. I should have played that one.
And then Sega, once again, went, fuck you, and didn't give any of that to PC.
Yep. Pretty much. So don't play the PC version. play the PS4 version. Apparently remade quite well. Now, when we get to talk about a game that I think is going to rate a little bit higher.
Yeah. A game that didn't get as much attention as it should have, in my opinion.
Yeah. Unfortunate, and happened to the first version of the game, too.
Yeah.
Which is really their biggest issue is their launch window. They really have to fix that. Because Forbidden West is a game. You only ever played VC4. You enjoyed it for the most part. Just had a couple missions that felt needlessly long and drawn out because of how boss enemies worked. Yeah, that's fair. I'd say the exact same about VC. Lazy DLC. Yeah, that's fine. I'm used to lazy DLC. I expect DLCs to be lazy from most companies.
Especially from Sega. I don't like Sega.
Sega's published some games that I adore. So,
notedly Yakuza.
Yeah, but also the Shining series. Shining in the Darkness, Shining Force 2, Shining the Holy Ark was all them.
Not in my good graces with recent releases.
Yeah, I guess there's not a lot recently that I love from them, but they did do a lot of good games in the past. Just avoid their hardware. Yeah, that one wasn't fun. Screw Pacifist. Okay, Forbidden West. Let's shift this topic to Forbidden West. And I know at least Val has played it. Has anyone else actually played it yet? Because you should have. You definitely should have. If you didn't play this one, you missed.
Yeah, Sega's arcade presence was really what carried them. Did you hear that the Sega arcade closed in Japan?
Yep.
Like the big ones in Tokyo? So sad.
I posted it in our gaming news when it happened.
So sad.
Yeah. Okay, Forbidden West. World building.
So the world building in Forbidden West is interesting because it does partially build off of what you already know from the previous game.
Yeah.
But it does it in such a way that it introduces sort of smoothly into a whole new area of the world that has a bunch of different stuff going on, and I think was overall very strong.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps carry the game forward, and the interest of the world and what the world is like and what's going on in the world definitely drove my interest in the game.
For sure.
Not as strong as the first game.
No. The first game was really, really standout. Very difficult to live up to something like that, especially when you're creating a whole new world and you can just kind of do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
The constraints that they had placed themselves within for the second game, I think, were reasonable, and the implementation that they did within those constraints was good. I would say that it's, in my mind, still qualifies for a good ranking, but with the caveat that it is not quite as groundbreaking and innovative as the first game.
It transfers to an entirely new section of the same world very organically, allowing you to learn new things, people, and places without feeling forced or seeing the same content as before. It was really well done. I agree. I never felt pushed or guided or just a good game. That's a lot of text.
There's a degree of like video gamey. Okay, go here now, please.
Oh yeah.
But that amount was very reasonable, I think.
You'd still need to guide a character eventually.
Yeah.
You need the direction. Just don't hold their hand. Just point them. Point them and let them go. Especially in an open world game. Point them, let them go, and then gate their access to the areas that need gating. That's what they did, and they did it well. Characters.
So the characters I actually liked, well, specifically the character writing, I liked a lot more than the previous game. I thought that the slight changes to some of the previous characters that they made were really beneficial to how those characters interacted, especially with the protagonist. I still love Aloy. I still think she's a great character. The way that they handled some of the new characters, again, sometimes a little ham-fisted, but much more subtle than in Valkyria Chronicles. The way that it did it was, I hesitate to use the word nuanced because it's such a loaded term, but it was, I guess the best word is more subtle in how they handled the changes.
Aloy is almost insufferable in this one. How so? I didn't feel her character really changed much. Same driven Aloy. One-track mind with a goal.
Also, you get to choose her dialogue options.
That's true, too. Her character never grew. This is true. She is always Aloy. Other characters do around her, though.
I think that that's fine because the growth happened in the first game, and now it's the second game is more about going and accomplishing things.
Yeah, and building the team. There's a lot more characters in this one, and yeah, the growth was happening with them learning and experiencing and meeting each other and
getting less racist.
Again with the racism in the games. This one and Valkyria both hit it on the head with those. And thinking about the other characters, I like, it's not easy being the savior of humanity and life in general. Exactly. She kind of needs to be a bit of an Ubermensch at that point because she's humanity's savior.
And I liked the times where it did show Aloy getting frustrated with the other parts of the cast. Because like she has all this knowledge and context that they don't. They have a much more simplified worldview. And there were times where she would just be like, fuck. Okay, come on.
Yeah, and yeah, like I was saying, the growth in the character experience and all that is now, instead of her learning the world and her growing, it's the rest of the world catching up to her and her teaching and building.
I haven't seen Yahtzee's take on it. I should watch that.
Yeah. I should watch it as well. But that's my feel on the characters. I agree Aloy is a little more static in this game, but the focus is on the team rather than the individual. And the team definitely grows as a group. And if you do the side quests for them, they change a lot. The only side quest I really... Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's sort of the team growing up to meet Aloy where she already is. So there's not really as much room for growth for her.
Yeah, she learns a little bit, but the answers aren't like things that'll change her. They're just, they're answers. And we get them, which is cool. And then we'll come to that in the next section. And I'm sure that will be a fun one too. I think it deserves an okay. I really like the characters, and the party grows well, but I do agree with Zelo. I think there is room. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
Do you play it just for the characters? I mean, the characters work in the game, but...
Horizon Zero Dawn, I played just for Aloy.
Yeah.
That is the whole reason I played Horizon Zero Dawn. Forbidden West, when it does eventually come to PC, I will probably play it. It won't be a priority because of how Aloy's growth is less of a focus in this game. And I think the lack of growth for the player's character does negatively impact it, and overall I think an okay is appropriate because of that. Imagine if you can control Aloy's party members for their side quests instead of doing their quest for them. Exactly. Like it falls prey to the show don't tell argument.
Yeah.
And I think the surrounding characters are the highlight, not Aloy this time.
I agree. And the problem with trying to play them instead of Aloy is then developing new combat mechanics for every character just for a quest. Would be cool, but not scope reasonable. This game had a fucking scope, let me tell you. Well, Aloy drops off some in this game. She is still true to her original character. The new additions to the cast are the highlight and focus of the character development. Enjoyed these characters. They made sense and felt organic for the most part. However, the lack of development with the protagonist holds the game back in rating.
Nariel is cooking food and it smells really good.
My food is about to be delivered and it's also going to smell very good. Wow, I'm typing lots in this game. I had a lot to say in this one. We don't usually have to go down to 8 font size. Storyline.
So I don't actually have the full picture on the storyline. I got real busy towards the end of this game.
Yeah, I'm just going to give it a good, and I'm not going to spoil too much for you, but it doesn't introduce anything unknown to the player from the first game, builds properly on the original story, and is quite obviously and clearly written as one consistent piece from beginning to end.
Definitely going in a direction. Yeah, and we'll see. Like, it could be that this was written to be either a single game or a trilogy. And this could be the weak second album, so to speak. So, we'll see. We'll see how it ends up.
I could see a third piece falling flatter than this one, honestly, if not really, really, really carefully done off of this follow-up. But I did like the story, and I thought it was a very nice evolution to the Horizon Zero Dawn story. Obviously, it's not going to have the mystery and the intrigue and the surprise of the Horizon Zero Dawn story, because that story was all mystery and intrigue and surprise due to the setting. We already know the setting now. We're coming back to it, so they can't rely on that. They did add more to it. They flushed it out. They've added new characters, and they have appropriate threats and responses happening from different factions at different times.
Stay tuned for the final in the trilogy, Horizon Lambda, the Forbidden Dance.
That's Lambada.
Yeah, reading is hard.
Yeah. You're a programmer, so the brain just went to Lambda right away.
Yep.
It happens. If they fail to let Aloy grow in the third, yeah. There needs to be more, but there's now a lot of places for it to grow.
Yeah, because they did so little in the second game. But the thing that I could see happening is it sort of ends up being more along the lines of the God of War original trilogy. And I hope it doesn't, because it doesn't have the mechanics to be able to do that.
I do love the combat, though. It's a lot of fun.
Good.
I love hunting machines. I do. Shooting the parts off them is just great. And I really like what they did with the weapons and the armor. We'll talk about that more when we get to mechanics, hopefully. Are we at a good story? I think it's still a good story. It's weaker than the first game, but it's still playable for the story.
From what I saw, it's hard to judge. I would be leaning more high okay from what I saw, but maybe I missed some of the good parts. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to step in with the veto and call it a good story and say you can just play it and enjoy the story, which is usually our benchmark for good. It's just, we set like a high bar, and then Horizon Zero Dawn launched like a fucking rocket. While the story is not the caliber of the first game, it is still a very solid entry and can be played and enjoyed just for the story. Solid entry in the series, regardless. It's got a little bit of Dark Souls 2 to it, unfortunately, that way. It just doesn't quite live up to the predecessor as hard as it could. Aloy wasn't... We both read it at the same time and then both stop. That's it. It's never getting read.
Nope, it's done. No more message.
Gone.
Purged.
Performance. Let's specify PS5. That's what I'm reviewing it from. That's what I played it on.
Yeah, because PC hasn't been released yet.
Wow. Okay, next. That's all that needs to be said about the PS5's performance.
To expand a little bit on that, the tech that Guerrilla implemented for both Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West is incredible. The fact that they managed to get that much performance out of a fixed and somewhat limited hardware set is mind-blowing. Like, their occlusion culling is hands down the best in the business.
And I watched Val play some of it, and short of him going into Plainsong, which is that big town where it's all in the sky with everything being a thatched texture. You know the one I'm talking about? The one that made my jaw drop? Yeah? That one tanked his frames to shit, which I figure. But other than that, it ran really well on the PS4 Pro, like totally playably.
Yeah, no, Guerrilla did a fantastic job with the engine that they built these games on. Just amazing job.
Yeah, and Val, to put it into perspective how the PS5 is compared to the PS4 Pro, there was a point where I was standing on the top of a mountain and I could see a small, maybe this big on the screen, tall neck walking around about 1,000 paces down the mountain, round in the floor. And when I looked really carefully, because I saw numbers popping up, there were robots running around his feet that I could make out from that far away and being stepped on by him and being interacted with. It was kind of amazing. I was like, they're rendering that from this far away? They're tracking that? What? There's behavior on those things down there? What?
And I mean, LOD and animation throttling definitely helps with that, but like the fact that they could occlude and cull and get enough performance out of the machine to actually draw that and track the interactions is mind-blowing.
Like a lot of normal people that just play video games will go like, oh wow, I can kind of see something down there. people that understand what was required to do that, their brains exploded. All right, just to clarify how good this is, one of the game developers for a reputable game studio that's a member here came in, and his personal opinion was technical masterpiece. Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Completely agree.
Animation?
Same problems as the first game because it's built on the same engine. But they did step it up a notch in a lot of senses, and I think they fucking nailed it.
The robots are so organic and yet robotic. I don't know how they did it. They're so well done.
The animations on the robots are fabulous. The human animations, a little less so, but that is people aren't very interesting. It has some of the same problems with the combat animation stretching that the first game had. They have some of the same problems with like snapping to interact with something that the first game had. They had some of the same problems with like, oh wow, that flew weird, as the first game had. But like that's all comes down to tiny implementation details, the inefficiency of using FP32 in order to calculate some of those things. Like what they've done with the animation in this game is fantastic. Like Val mentions the snake boss in the opening section, so cool. It's incredibly well done. Just some small nitpicks that are like, yeah, okay, I understand why they're there, but those are the only things that are really marring it.
You could improve those things, but my God, what a job you've done is sort of where we're at.
Yeah.
Style is, everything looks right. Everything feels right. Environments are gorgeous. Vistas are beautiful.
And one of the cool things, again, because we like to touch on stylistic consistency in this section, is that the locations are all unique, and you can more or less guess which section you're going to be in based on what you're looking at on the screen. But the consistency while keeping that disparate feel to different areas is very well done.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And again, all of the robot design is just top tier. When the first Horizon came out, you called it a screenshot dynamo. It is. The second one is even better. So. Oh man, what a pretty game. But we were watching a documentary about how they designed the monsters, the robots, the other day. And it was so cool. It was so cool. The steps that they went through. Raid welcome, scornful raiders. We're talking about the style in Forbidden West and just gushing on it because it was so good. It was so good. But yeah, they were talking about how they wanted to design these robots and have them feel organic. So what they did is they stripped down the robot. So they start with what shape they're going for, like a horse, right? And they would draw the horse with like tubes, basically, to get its shape. And that would be the base layer. And then they would add a rigid structure on top of that so that it maintains its fluid shape but becomes a more robotic structure. And then from there, they started adding the armored panels on it in order to give it the geometric shape on the outside. And they just built from the inside out. And the end result was these amazing, organic, clearly machines. So well done.
Big agree. Very, 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 very cool.
I liked how a lot of the robots seemed like they had an actual ecological purpose. They do have an actual ecological purpose. Like the big hippo one, who were turning the organic stuff they consume into those pods. Yep. The ones with the big tusks as well are tilling soil and fertilizing it, mixing the fertilizer into the soil. I mean, that's what the whole point of the story is. Every machine in the story was built to terraform the planet. They all had a specific purpose in the terraforming process. And music score, I don't remember at all.
From what I remember, it was fine.
Music is unmemorable. This is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's great background noise, background music, sort of what's the word that Pseudo always uses?
Ambient?
Yes. Great ambient music.
Voice acting, again, sets a bar.
Ashley Birch is a fucking hero.
Keep using Ashley Birch. There you go. That's all we have to say. I mean, they were all good. There was no one bad in the voice acting, but just don't stop what you're doing. Don't stop what you're doing. I don't really have anything negative at all. Burch. Well, she should learn how to spell her name properly.
Either.
Then she should learn how to spell her damn name. That's what I have to say to that. Sound effects were also good. I like sound effects. You'd have to argue pretty hard to get me to go below good on the sound effects. I love the sounds of the robots.
Yeah, robots are standout. Clanky noises, real good. They effectively convey state when fighting other humanoids. All of the sounds in the towns and whatnot were great.
Didn't have money for the extra vowel. Rip. I would like to see a bit more range in the voices, but I think that's covered in characters. Yeah. I think it's more the characters being who they are. They did raise their voice when it was called for and stuff. There was emotion in the voices. You could hear frustration, and you could hear angst, and you could hear, subtleties of being scared or being not dismissive, but passive. Is the word I'm looking for. Thinking of the one kind of cowardly girl that was gathering data, who grows a lot after you meet her. Tell what kind of robot was in the area by the sounds before you ever saw them. Yep, that's what we talk about with the state conveyance. In everyone except Aloy.
Is it? I'm not sure what you're criticizing, the lack of growth or the voice acting, because I think Ashley Birch fucking nailed it, dude. She's great.
Yeah, I have no complaints about Aloy's voice acting. Also, fun fact, in that design video, one of the sound designers for the robots was talking about it, and the watchers, or the screechers, other than a couple of the noises, that was her own voice. Yep.
Huh.
just run through a lot of filters and stuff.
Neat. Great voice acting, but the writer for the character let it down. Yeah, no, we agree on that.
AI/enemy behavior I thought was very good in this game.
I would say it's almost identical to the first game,
I
think we ranked as good.
Okay, I actually find it better than the first game. I found the humans were a lot less stupid when it came to getting shot from cover and whatnot. It was less easy to manipulate and abuse them. You could still do it, but you had to work a lot more for it.
Yeah. What I was thinking of was animals, robots, and they seemed more or less the same because they were already really good.
Yeah.
But the human AI did improve. It, like, I'm kind of on Val's wavelength here, where it's still pretty bare bones, and you can very clearly tell that this is an enemy in a video game.
Oh yeah.
But it was better.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not like a fantastically amazing human controller, but it's less stupid than it was. Like before, it would just like, by the time I finished clearing out a camp, it was just like a pile of dead bodies in one spot. This is what it usually ended up being. This one was less like that. They don't let you get away with quite as much, unless you're like way more patient.
So then do we want to say that it's an okay because the robots are, I keep trying to call them animals, the robots are more or less the same with a mild improvement in human AI?
I think
or do we want to call it a good and just say the robots are still standout? We would like to see more improvement on the humanoid creatures.
I'm with the good. The robots are as good as they always were, which was always great. Definitely deserved a good on the robots always. The humans are a little more barebone. They're not the main focus of the combat, but they are improved. And as long as the humans keep improving and the robots don't drop quality, I think the combat's going to remain great. I think the enemy behavior is going to remain a top tier aspect of the game.
Fair enough.
Robots are fantastic, as always. Humans are improved over the first game. Still a little basic, but they meet the needs of the game's design. Granted, if the human enemy AI was really good, it could be frustrating considering how many enemies they put in one outpost. Yeah, well, I mean, I ended up just like killing 2 or 3 from stealth and then just aggroing them and murdering them all through combat anyway, because you can totally do that. And they built on the mechanics of melee combat and fighting humans enough that the combat with them isn't boring and dull like it was before, which was needed because they've added human bosses too. Accessibilities. I never look into this before I get to this point.
Horizon Forbidden West accessibility.
Oh yeah, they had the
right, I remember being impressed.
Yeah,
I remember this.
Yeah, there's a ton of features for even changing the gameplay so that if certain parts of the gameplay you can't react to well enough or whatnot, you can automate healing, co-pilot, mount follows road, weapon wheel slowdown, auto heal, guided or explore waypoint pathing. I believe they had colorblind options.
They did have various controller profiles, but not full rebinding, which is unfortunate, but understandable.
Yeah, I mean, even having controller profiles is still better than a majority of console games.
Yes, better than a majority, not as good as we would like.
Yes.
Do love the ability to change your auto aim amount, like how strong it is. Also love the ability to turn on auto run so that you don't have to hold a button if it's hurting your hands. Love the auto climb. There's lots of great configuration for visual and audio settings, like really, really well done, especially for a console game. The volume controls are fantastic. Different audio mixes for different speaker setups. Really well done.
Yeah. I guess we're at a good then. They've covered their bases.
Yes, you could switch the button mash EQTs to the hold instead.
Yep.
I would say this is very good. I love to see it. More, please. Still not quite Last of Us 2 level, because that was just nuts. I loved the accessibility features in there. But very good. Definitely worthy of applause.
Yeah, I was super happy to see the direction that it continues to go. And every time we do, accessibility just keeps getting better.
Please continue, good video game makers.
Yeah. Mechanics.
have a nitpick.
Okay.
I don't like the new skill tree.
I don't dislike it.
I didn't like it as much as the previous one. I think it was a downgrade.
It's more complicated. They had a lot more stuff to add into it this time, is why.
Which is not necessarily a good thing.
I agree, but I do like the mechanics they added.
I feel like it could have been trimmed down a bit.
I do like that they made weapons more like a thing. Like in the other game, it's like, I got a new bow. This is my bow now. And now it's, I can use this bow or that bow or that bow, and they've all got their strengths and weaknesses and things they do well and things they don't. There's even times where I would run like 2 or 3 hunting bows just because they all had different loadouts of arrows and setups of stuff that I wanted. And all of a sudden it was more about what type of weapon do I want to use rather than I should use this weapon here and this weapon here. And I could get the elements out of any type of weapon if I set that weapon up right. And it let me build rather than just playing it.
Definitely more flexible. And this is... full disclosure, this is opinion. We are in opinion territory now. I don't like it. I prefer the way they did it in the first game, where you get a bow and you're like, sweet, I have a bow now. And you can do all sorts of bow things with it. I much prefer that. It feels like you're making large chunks of progress over, little incremental improvements all over the place. It's the same criticism I've had for a long time with a lot of different games, where if your upgrades and new tools don't feel meaningful, then I don't care. Like all the different weapons in a Souls game, I'll find one weapon of one category and be like, sweet, this does the thing I want, and then completely ignore the rest of it.
Yep. And that's what the first Horizon was like. For the most part, it's, hey, I've got this purple one, it's going to be better than anything that isn't purple. Whereas in Forbidden West, it was, there's levels and upgrading them, and I was replacing my bow a lot more often, and that made like getting quest reward bows and finding bows and stuff like that actually relevant. And when I would find one, like I'd check it out right away, like, cool, what have I found? And oh wow, it's better than this for this. And maybe I don't put it on my wheel because I don't do that often enough, but it still has its spot that it exists rather than just being completely irrelevant because other bow was found with a different color.
Yeah, whereas I prefer just give me the big number. I don't care. I don't want it to be situational. Just give me a bigger number.
Well, there is the bow that just has the bigger number that you can get that bow and just ignore everything else. That's still a way you can play it. You just get the sniper bow with the damage number on it and you're good to go.
Yeah, and just like the first game, your loot system is completely lost on me. like I said, this is all opinion. I think mechanically what they did is really interesting. It's very similar to Bloodborne with the rune system and the upgrade system. I think it could have been pared down, much like Bloodborne was, to give each weapon a little bit more individuality, a little bit more character.
I agree.
But at the same time, like, I just don't like the system that they implemented. I think it works well, but I don't like it.
I like that it's... the reason I like it in the game is because it does make loot more relevant. It makes loot more interesting.
It makes it more relevant. It's just, for me, the forcing of the loot system. Well, it's not even really forcing. Like the hey, you should really check this out of the loot system. Just it doesn't hit home for me. That's
fair. And honestly, if compared to, I like it more than the first Horizon Zero Dawn system. The first Horizon Zero Dawn was so boring and basic and basically not there that it might as well just not be there. I think a Sekiro approach is better at that point, where you're like, here's your sword.
Yes, please give me Sekiro. That is exactly what I want. Give me sword, and then optionally bigger sword. Done.
But again, this game being that more RPG approach with the open world, I really like how they expanded from the first game. Has room for improvement, 100%, but is improvement.
Yes, definitely. It's a better system from the first game. Not my personal cup of tea, but mechanically it's much improved. Did they give you new spears?
No.
Yeah, I thought not. So the the melee combat mechanics are still basically identical aside from the new abilities.
Yeah.
The overall game loop, I think if you were really into the mechanics of the first one, will be a great step up overall. You'll probably really, really enjoy the second one.
It's not going to change your mind if you didn't like the first one.
No. Mechanically, the fights make sense. There are some enemies that it's really hard to shoot the parts off of, and especially when you need to, that can be a little frustrating. But the slowdown time mechanics and the adjustment of the auto aim kind of makes that moot.
Yeah, I think with the slowdown, that's enough for people that are regular gamers, and if you have issues with fine motor control, then the accessibility options will help carry you through it. It's really well thought out on that front. And yeah, I love all the new attack types. I mean, I found one that I thought was overpowered for myself based on my play style, but when I looked at the rest of them, I'm like, that's overpowered, and that's overpowered, and that's like, I can see places where I would use all of these, but with my play style, this one's for me.
Yeah.
That's a nice design.
The additional skills really fleshed out the combat system quite well. Again, I don't particularly like how they're unlocked. I don't really like how they're laid out in the skill tree. But again, that's down to opinion. Mechanically, it works very, very well.
Yeah, and the way they're laid out and the way it's unlocked and the path of it makes it so painless to just go right to any point on any of the trees that maybe it can be a little overpowered, but at the same time, if the player wants to do it, then they can just do it.
With some obvious exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, getting up to max melee damage was not difficult. I was at max melee damage like an eighth of the way through the game.
Yeah, no, it's not hard. And the melee combat is still not where this game shines. It is still absolutely the ranged combat that is the darling of this game.
The melee is much more palatable in this game and more usable with the added abilities.
Yeah, it is definitely improved, but not the focus.
Yeah, I didn't feel that. I didn't have a problem dodging. But I don't know. They do, but they also make a lot of noise from a long way away, telling you that attack is coming and where it's coming from without even having to see it. There was a lot of times on stream where I heard it and just like rolled towards the sound and ended up going under the bear or whatever it was jumping at me even though I couldn't see it.
And like that's sort of the enemies playing by the same rules that Aloy has. Like Aloy's lunging attacks are bullshit.
That's true. That's true. Her charged R2 is so fucking broken. So broken. Just fly like 500 feet across the level and smash them into an unconscious state and kill them in one hit. Just spam R2 if you want to win. I'm still giving it a good, though. I absolutely adore the combat mechanics. I like we gave it a good before. Hasn't gone downhill anywhere. They've improved on the places they wanted to improve on. Expanded on melee, and they've even added bosses with boss mechanics that aren't the most amazing bosses, but this team's they don't do a lot of bosses. Bosses are hard to do, and they were fine. And the last boss was actually quite good, quite challenging. Tested my skills.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Last bosses are really hard.
I liked the last boss.
I would say overall I agree with you. I think It's just a good improvement over the previous game. Nothing really regressed mechanically, and the new additions to melee combat are definitely welcome. Just most of the criticism, most of the criticism that we have is opinion rather than this is borked.
We'll add that in there, even though it's getting a good. It is good, but if you didn't like the first one, this is more of the same. I'm going to give the bugs an okay. PS4 has some PS4 has reported a few serious issues. PS5 had minor issues with Quest State. If you encounter these issues, save and reload. Should get rid of it.
Also performance issues with some areas where you just need to reload.
Yeah. NPC body parts sometimes wouldn't load in. That's a problem. Yeah, I heard the one guy was saying that on his PS4, none of the enemy humanoids' heads loaded in. Which made combat really difficult, because only the headshots will kill silently and not alert people.
Yeah.
He said he was making headshots and the arrows were just going through, which means not even hitbox was loading there. It wasn't visually not there, it was just not there, apparently.
It just wasn't there. Didn't exist.
I'm not 100% on that because I didn't see it, but that would suck. Might have still been an invisible mesh to interact with if you shot the right spot, but it's hard to find. Since you only have the PS4, do you have PS4 or PS4 Pro?
Because if you've got base PS4, then be like me and do the wait for PC club.
Yeah. Yeah, base PS4. Yeah, strongly recommend against that purchase. Do not buy it for base PS4. Find a 4 Pro, it's acceptable, or just hold out for a 5 or the PC release. Which is sad. Sad that it's so unavailable for people to get the system that the game is on, because the game is really, really, really cool, and you know what? That also is probably hurting its launch. That it's PS5 primarily. Where Elden Ring is on every fucking console under the sun.
Yeah. Apparently like 12 million copies have sold already, which is nuts.
You can't. Get Cyberpunk for PS4.
Yeah, they pulled it.
RNG is good.
Loot tables with some deterministic aspects because you can shoot them off the enemy.
Yeah. The loot table isn't really for the materials, it is for the coils that drop.
Yep.
Materials are all determined by what you shoot off the robot, which is just, I love the design. You guys are genius. It was so well done. Such a great idea. A little overstuffed with crafting loot. It is getting a little stuffed, but the number one complaint from the general public about Zero Dawn was not enough stuff in it.
Yeah, and I think the way that they handled the crafting system is very inoffensive. They did put it back on the PS Store. Interesting. As long as it doesn't have like a finite amount of things that you can carry, which I don't think it does, then you just run around and mash pick up.
You have a finite number you can carry per item of thing, and then it does a Bloodborne and puts it right into your stash.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, which is the way to do it. Unless you're making a survival game where the core game loop is finding things and deciding what you need to take with you, don't make the player make those decisions. Don't pull me out of the game and make me make these stupid decisions when I could just pick it up and continue on with the action, which is the core game loop of your game and the thing that makes it shine. Let it shine. And that's what they did. They polished the shit out of the shine, and they took away everything that got in our way. Good game design.
Agree.
And the control's good. Being the one who played it.
Obligatory fuck aiming with controllers.
Controls are sharp and responsive, but fuck aiming with controllers. There you go. Probably would have really sucked to make Forbidden West into a survival crafting. Yeah.
Yeah, big agree.
And surprising nobody, good writing and good audio and good video and good gameplay. Even if I got audio and video backwards, it didn't matter. Game's good. Game is good. Go
the
play
controller's
Forbidden
not doing
West.
the aiming, Val. The controller's not doing the aiming, the auto aim is. Have you ever tried playing without auto aim?
I always play without auto aim on my controllers. It's super painful though. But in my mind, if I always play without auto aim, I'll eventually get better. Finally managed to order a Series X this morning, like a year and a half after launch. I mean, you can definitely get them if you're trying hard enough and looking in the right channels and stuff like that. Like, I have bought two.
The fact that you can't just go to the store and buy one
it's
a year and a half after launch is ludicrous.
I 100% agree. And it's not that they've produced a normal amount. It's just that, production's down is why we don't get them.
And because everybody's at home, everybody wants one.
Yep, it's a bad spot. But we got a few minutes. Is there any news we want to talk about?
GPU prices are falling.
Oh, that's nice.
Very nice. We're down to approximately like 30 to 35% over MSRP for most cards.
Yay, we're down to only this much over MSRP. It's like, oh.
Well, I mean, compared to $2,500 for a 3090.
I know. I'm still in agreement with you, but just the fact that we're excited that it's only this much over MSRP now is sad. Yeah, exactly. Oh, we only have to pay this much over the price we should pay.
You can get 6900 XTs for almost MSRP, like $1,100. Don't buy a fucking 3090 or a 3080 Ti. Go get a 6900 XT.
All of the streaming that you see done on our channels, Rage and I both, is done with a 6900 XT. Playing the game on the same system that we stream off of. Granted, we've got a hell of a processor to do the encoding.
Yeah, the 5950X is no fucking joke. But at the same time, like, the performance is as good as a 3090. It's just you don't have RTX for like the 5 games that it's in.
But that's okay. You mean DLSS? No, RTX.
No,
RTX.
I mean ray tracing.
Yeah, RTX. I forgot about RTX for a moment there. But yeah, I mean, AMD still has RTRT.
It's just not as good.
Yeah, it's coming. New implementations are looking good. Also, the new implementations of their DLSS response are looking real sharp.
Yeah, very, very promising. I'm waiting for more video footage of the upscaler in action, because now it's a temporal upscaler, and it might have the same problems that DLSS does with like ghosting and not being able to do fine detail. But it's looking very impressive so far, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it'll be good. It's
much more in line with DLSS 2.0 now. Considerable upgrade, and the coolest part about it is it's hardware agnostic. So you don't need to use it on the AMD cards like RTX on the RTX cards. You can use it in other places. 6700 XT for $650. That will play all the games at a reasonable rate today.
Yeah, you'll be able to do 1440p no problem, just not at like 160 FPS.
Yeah. If you're going 1440p 60 FPS, you're fine. Probably even 100 FPS you can hit. If you're going 60 FPS, you can probably hit ultra graphics. Unless you're playing like the new hotness. New hotness games can crank.
The big thing with AMD's cards is they excel at lower resolutions because of the impressive amount of low-level cache that they've got. So for like 1440p and 1080p, they run fast. Holy cow, do they run fast. Once you start getting above that, like my two 1440p monitors glued together, starts to struggle a bit. Starts to struggle a bit with 4K. But that's just because the frame buffer needs to be enormous.
Yeah. To put it in reference, my 6900 XT was getting over 900 frames per second playing Doom Eternal. When it hit really, really high action areas, it was going down to like 500 or 600 frames per second.
Aww.
That's why I did what AMD recommends, and I went into my hardware settings, and we turn on, where is it? Oh God.
Radeon Chill, I believe, that allows you to limit your target FPS.
No, it's frame rate target control.
Ah, yes.
Right here. And I have it set to 177. So my card at a physical driver level will never draw faster than 177 frames per second. Because why do you need more than 177 frames per second?
Interestingly, LTT did a video on do higher frame rates actually make you a better gamer? And yes, they do. Mm-hmm. Up to around 144, and then it starts falling off pretty hard.
Yeah, but those high frames are milliseconds of response time that you have that other people don't. Well, you see, the old argument of human eye can't see over a certain FPS anyway is actually completely irrelevant when you take the equation out of a vacuum, because in your vacuum experimentation, you're thinking that your eye is refreshing at the exact same speed as the monitor. And it's not. Even if they're at the exact same speed, I mean, they're not at the exact same point of refresh. Right? So
Which is all kind of moot anyway, because your eyes don't refresh. It's a stream.
Yeah. But your brain does sort of process that stream in chunks. It is still a manifested slideshow at some point, but even if you sync up those numbers perfectly, it's not going to be what you're thinking because they're not in an actual sync. So you want to draw as fast as you possibly can to get as many refreshes between each eye recognition, basically.
Yeah, so when at all possible, get you a 144 or higher monitor.
The reason I'm at 177 is my monitor is a 177 hertz monitor. That's why I did that. It wasn't arbitrary. There was logics to it. I can't display more than that, so let's stop it there.
You may want to bump it up just a little bit, just because refresh syncing can be a little weird sometimes. But
because of what I exactly talked about just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can go up to like 200 real comfortably and keep it nice and level there.
Yeah. 144 hertz, 1440p or 1080p is the sweet spot for gaming these days.
Yep. Anything over 1440p is just not
we can't fill
logical.
We can't fill it fast enough.
I've got about the best hardware I can get, and it's not at the performance numbers that I really want to see when I try to run games there, so I just won't. That's my solution. All right. That was fun.
Yeah, it's a good discussion.
Yeah. Now I've got food, and I'm not going to be streaming tonight, probably. I'm going to go visit an old friend of mine that I haven't seen since, like, grade 9. Praise the refresh rate. Yes. I agree. May the good hurts guide your way. No, nothing?
There's nothing else to say. Refresh rate good.
Oh, may the good hurts guide your way. Oh, come on. Come on.
But yeah, it's a Bloodborne reference. Yes, I understand.
Okay. Whatever. Until the next time we see you. Hey, maybe we'll show you that new game we were playing last night. We kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. It's like... What do we describe it as? Oh, yeah, GTFO Lite.
Yeah, GTFO, but casual.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a good game.
So it's WTFO, not GTFO.
Walk the fuck out.
Yep. Stone goblins are a crime against fun and game design. Yep. I mean, that just describes Elden Ring.
The bleed is more the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not a very fun game. That's the bottom line.
Which is a shame, because it has so many great mechanical things. Then just kind of trips and falls on his face.
Yeah. Go watch our Elden Ring review if you disagree with us. We've stated all of our reasons very clearly there. It's a 2-hour dissertation, breakdown, understanding of the game and why it failed to meet certain benchmarks that we have expectations for. Yep, Val was bitching about that too. Every enemy in the game does that. Take a swing, they run away. Take a swing, they run away. Take a swing, they run away. Boring.
We did tackle that as well.
Yep, we talked about that. Anyway, I hope you do have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Friday or Saturday. A wonderful rest of your Saturday evening. I might be on, I might not tomorrow. I don't usually stream on Sundays, but not streaming tonight. Maybe I'll feel up to it, maybe not. Maybe Rage will pinch my nipples and make me stream. Who knows?
Maybe.
So, until then, I'm Deus.
And I'm Rage.
And may all your shots be headshots.